Well, hello and good evening. Happy Halloween weekend, everyone. Welcome to this week's new episode of Breakfast with Boom. And folks, we have a returning hero in Zemi Games who actually has been on every show but has returned here today. We have Mr. Joanna Dark that is joining us as a special guest. And of course, the best brain in the business, VJ, is here. We're going to get to the introductions shortly. Folks, we have a great show prepared for you. We're going to be talking about the Sony's State of Nay, as they're calling it, because, yeah, it was pretty bad. And as a matter of fact, it was so bad, it did, in fact, feel like it was thrown together in someone's back closet and put out there for people to, I guess, maybe possibly enjoy, and it was a big flop. We're going to be talking about Double Fine Studios. This is a team led by industry icon that has jumped onto the scene. They could have been out of business. Tim Schafer is a legend in the business. He's a gentleman. He's a gamer. He's funny. If you ever listened to any of his interviews, and what is fantastic is that the game that you are playing, the game that we have all played, the game that people are nominating for numerous awards, I believe that even at the end of the year during Keeley's event is going to be nominated. I have, folks, I got a feeling that it's, I mean, to say that it's going to get platform of the year is just, you almost expect that. Though I have a feeling this could win the Covenant Game of the Year. For a lot of reasons. And to be honest with you, I could not be happier for that team, because the game that we are playing right now is a game that would not have existed if Microsoft didn't step in and purchase the studio and inundate the studio with monies in order to do all the finishing touches that made it its game of the year. And I think that is a conversation that has not been had by many podcasters. It's one that we are probably going to have today. And of course, we're going to be talking about Starfield, and I'm glad Zemi's here for it, because he's a big Bethesda fan, like we all are. And folks, I mean, we're a year out, right? Give or take, almost a year out from when this game is supposed to launch in holiday of next year. And, you know, God Howard, as he's known to many, including Zemi Games, has been doing some, you know, advertising for the game 12 months in advance. And I think that it's fantastic. And they just released a new video last week talking about the faction. So we're going to break that down. But let's get into the panel introductions, and then we'll get right into what happened during the Sony State of Play or State of Nay, depending on who you ask. Zemi Games, welcome back, brother. How the heck are you?
I'm home. I'm home, Boom.
Yes, you
I'm back
are.
home. No. No, I am excited to be back on Breakfast with Boom, man. I mean, this is obviously where I started my podcasting journey with you all those many, many years ago. So, you know, I'm super happy to, you know, help fill in the gaps from, you know, some of your regular panelists, you know, having to jump out this week. But yeah, I'm super excited for the topics lined up, man. Can't wait to jump in and talk about them.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you, folks, there's a lot of green room conversation that specifically went on today that was so good, folks. That was literally so good that it could have been its own podcast. In fact, it's going to be, because it's going to be a topic on Tuesday's Xbox Factor podcast. I'm going to write it over the weekend. It is an original topic of conversation and thought. One of which is going to be returning to the conversation, and Zemi cannot wait to have this, is the kart racer that should and could be made by Rare or someone else within Microsoft, and I think it can be done. You know, preferably, I'd love to see someone at Playground Games, a small team that wants a Mario Kart-esque racer. You know, bring that kind of family fun to, of course, Xbox Game Pass and the platform, which we know we've all agreed that they need. But we'll be getting more into that on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to that conversation, and I know Zemi is as well. But next special guest is someone that actually works at Microsoft. He has been someone that has been on my show now. I believe it's the third time. He has also exploded on the scene of not only popularity, but his banter within the community is so very reminiscent of what we expect from Microsoft. And he's here today to talk and give us his thoughts. Mr. Joanna Dark, brother, what's up? How the heck are you?
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you again for always reaching out. It's great to hear that Zemi also started here his podcast. And similar to myself, I reached out to Mr. Boom, asked him if I can come on the show and kind of, talk about my love for games. And, I want to say thank you again for always, being that person that provides, a platform for people that want to just kind of get into this scene. It's a pleasure to meet Zemi Games. In the back, we were talking about Werewolf the Apocalypse. Um, and
Game of the century.
yes, banger.
Brilliant game. Beautiful.
And again, it's great to be podcasting with VJ. I call him the Walt Frazier of podcasting because of his, the way he articulates things and
he
the
does. He's a very good articulate. I tell you, he'd be a good police officer because obviously, in order to process arrests, in order to defend your arrest in trial, you have to be good at articulation, and he is the master. But
he says words I've never even heard of. By the way.
all the time. So he's the smartest student in the room, 100%. VJ, I hope you're smiling. But Mr. Joanna Dark, it's great to have you back. And one of the gifts that I have been given as a podcaster, besides an audience that likes to actually hear what I have to say, which is, again, it's never a given. YouTube, I say this all the time, is a vast pool of incredible talent. Some people you've heard of and you want to forget. Some people you've never heard of and you wish you would have. And because I've been giving this opportunity, one of the most important things for me is being inclusive and giving folks that may or may not have a chance to put their voice out there. Maybe they have a small podcast. Maybe it's only their brother, sister, and their mom that's subscribed. We want to get them on the show. We want to get your voices out there and help you build your audience. I had the pleasure last primetime gaming of having some gentlemen on from Hawaii. And they came in on the scene, and they're a small podcast. And then we talked about it live on the air. They have a small audience. They're trying to grow their brand, and not many. Hawaii is a beautiful place, but they don't have the biggest gaming reach. And they're trying to they're trying to get out there and do that. And obviously having them on and getting them their voices out there was super important to me. But listen, let's continue with the introductions. And VJ, last and certainly not least, you've had your spot of tea. You are waking yourself up. I know that the encyclopedia that is your brain is working. Welcome to the program, brother. How you feeling?
I'm good, Boom. I'm good. Yeah, I was smiling in the background. It seems like Zemi and JD, Joanna Dark, have done my intro for me. So I don't think there's much left for me to say. But I'm kind of looking forward to the show. And yeah, it's great to see Zemi again. It's been too long, sir. And of course, Boom. It's fantastic that you invite me on the Friday morning shows, and I'll do my best for you.
Listen, I don't doubt it, but listen, obviously first of all, it's a Halloween weekend, right? Whenever Halloween falls on a Friday, a Saturday, or like it this year, it falls on a Sunday, it's exciting because it's a weekend of celebration. Normally I will build some part of the show around horror, Zemi's favorite topic of all time. But you know something? I didn't build the show around horror. And do you know why that is? Because I didn't have to. No, Zemi, it wasn't you. It wasn't because you were going to be on. It was because the horror came at the expense of Sony's State of Play. They literally dropped the horror theme into me. And I say that with absolute disrespect because it was awful. Folks, it was terrible. It was thrown together. If you are a diehard Sony fan, you got to ask yourself, what in God's name were they thinking when they put this together? Obviously, look, we understand at the forefront of, Xbox versus PlayStation and PlayStation versus Nintendo and Nintendo versus PC. it's a business, right? We all have our own hearts for our own consoles and brands, but at the end of the day, it's a business. So we understand that Microsoft did something, and I mean 343 Industry did something this week. Monday, they dropped the single player campaign overview. It took the world by storm. I still am reeling in excitement for what that game is going to be in a couple of weeks when it releases. I think we are probably around 5 weeks from release, may give or take a few days more. Obviously, we have a bunch of releases coming out before then. You know, they have the 20th anniversary controller. They have the Halo Infinite console, which I checked, and my order's still in. We got the Halo Infinite Elite controller. I mean, there's just so much coming out in the next couple of weeks that I've been putting the money away because I knew I was going to get clobbered. And indeed, I'm going to be clobbered, but it's going to be for a good thing. But I have to say that, Sony does things that, that I consider to be disrespectful. We understand, and it was almost, sometimes they do step in it, so to speak. And they announced, of course, on Monday that there was some new information coming for Horizon Zero Dawn. And as much as I'm a fan of Aloy, no one cares. No one gives a flying F, because the game's coming out next year, even though it's one of my most anticipated games because I love that world. You didn't have, you could, as respect to what Microsoft has been through in the course of a last generation where Sony wiped the floor with them. I found it almost pathetic that they would try and steal the thunder away from 343 Industries, who has had a hard time. And I've given them a hard time, and I think for fair reasons. I'm not overly critical of 343 Industries. I just want a good game, like I think everybody else does, and they delivered. And of course, now you have the state of play, and I watched some videos. I'm a good friend of this show, Mr. Badbit, who is one of the. If you want to watch a PlayStation show that respects you as a person, respects you as a gamer, and just wants to have fun, you got to sub this dude on YouTube. You got to check out the Trophy Room. It is by far one of the best PlayStation shows. I would even dare say that it rivals P.S. I Love You. How about that, Joe? If you're listening, I know you're smiling. They released this state of play, and it was a horror. I have notes. I will, ramble off what was revealed, and then we will dissect it. They open up the show with Deathverse, Let It Die, which is a very, very, very poor attempt as, hey, let's copy Fortnite. Let's make it where we're using swords to chop people to pieces. And let's see if we can get this as, another free-to-play game that the world doesn't need. It was very forgettable. It is what it is. Then they follow that with something called We Are OFK. And it's an indie pop music game, kind of like a storytelling game. I'm going to be honest with you. The writing for the little segment, of course, because they talked about Sony, like almost breaking the fourth wall, was pretty interesting. I mean, it's a game that I'm probably not going to play, but it looked interesting. And of course, Big Snacks, the big DLC that no one asked for Bug Snacks. And again, this is a game that came out. It is, listen, I'm sure that there are kids that are digging it. This could have been in a blog post. I think anyone was looking forward to Big Snacks, the big free update. And of course, then they followed that because, it's Halloween. So why not make this horror show even more scarier by showing you Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Again, is that a thing anymore? Does anyone still play Five Nights at Freddy's? I know it was a mobile thing and now it's a console thing, but okay, if you're into it, I'm not going to say boo to you if you are. Death's Door was announced. And see, that was the big one. Right, Death's Door. I actually beat this year. It's going to probably be in my top 10. If you are a Souls Light / Zelda OG, you're probably going to dig it. I didn't get 1,000 out of 1,000 achievements. I got most of them, and I loved it. And then they followed that with something that it looked like a mobile game. It plays like a mobile game. It looks like a complete, utter ripoff of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Kart Riders Drift. It looked awful. I'm going to be honest with you folks. It looked terrible. The next one, now this is exciting for me. As you know, my favorite console of all time is the Dreamcast. And I could even put like the Saturn like right next to it because I was very big into imports. I was also big into 2D fighters. And SNK, outside of Capcom being the top dogs. I loved SNK games. So it was announced that obviously King of Fighters 15 is coming. There's going to be a beta that's going to be coming soon. Marketing rights go to Sony, which is not surprising, but King of Fighters 15 is coming to everywhere, including Xbox. And that's a big deal because I will buy that. And I think that SNK realized that instead of selling to the 1 or 1.5 million people on PlayStation, they would double their efforts and potentially sell an additional 1 to 1.5 million copies of this fighting game to people on Xbox and PC. It makes sense because, fighting games are niche. King of Fighters is even more niche. Then they had a survival game with some sort of an AI uprising that kind of looked like Fallout-ish a little bit, called First Class Trouble. Very forgettable. And then they showed a closer look into the game coming out called Little Devil Inside. I mean, they showed the world map. I don't know if it needed to be in there. I kind of felt like someone just like, hey, just throw this in there because we need an extra 7 minutes to make this a little longer. And then they finished off with Star Ocean, The Divine Force. Now, I know there are a lot of people that love Star Ocean. It's a very, very popular, a big brand on PlayStation, has been for years. It was confirmed by Square Enix. I believe it's Square, right? That's coming out with it. That it's releasing on all platforms. The game looked okay. Not great, to be honest with you. But listen, I've talked enough. And we have, I believe, let me get back to the page because I'm actually looking for my notes. We have over 200 people here. This is awesome. Semi Games, let's get to you first. This was a bit of a letdown. Now, I'm the first one to say, never go into these shows with tempered expectations because what's the fun in that, right? Like, who wants to be boring, right? I want to be wrong. Well, yeah, but it's okay, Zemi. I don't mind being the boob that said Xbox show Z is going to have X and Y. I don't mind that. And of course, I'm usually wrong, right? Yeah, it's fine. It is what it is. But I saw some predictions, specifically like Joe, like Mr. Badbit. He actually had a pretty reasonable one. And I was like, wow, man, if that's what it is, that's pretty dope. Wasn't that at all? A lot of people got it wrong. When you saw it, where do you fall on why release a big nothing burger like this to your fans that are logistically starving for information and a reason to get excited? Because the bottom line, very simply, is, and we're going to talk about this for 22, and I'm talking about when we bring the Starfield conversation into the mix. Sony's in a bit of trouble, and we're going to get into why that is. Horizon. We know it's coming out. We know it's not going to be delayed past where it's been delayed. We're getting it next year. I already got the collector's edition. I cannot wait to unbox it. I'm probably going to do an unboxing. I'm going to play that game until I complete it. God of War, I don't think we're getting. So I think the one big game you're getting next year, PlayStation fans, and I say we because I'm a PlayStation owner as well. That's it. We're getting Horizon. That's all she wrote. We're going to get into what else is coming out for Xbox. Sony might be in a bit of a pickle, to be honest with you. But we don't know if there's going to be another State of Play in December, Zemi. We don't know if there's going to be any kind of a special PlayStation event at the end of the year like it has in past years. And I got to be honest with everybody. If you close out the 21 campaign with this, yikes. What are your thoughts, man?
I think it's safe to say that PlayStation doesn't have nearly as much to really talk about is what Xbox does, right?
Yes,
and I think
correct.
a lot of that goes into Xbox has really been planning for this moment, I think a lot more intensely than what PlayStation has. Overall, though, for the actual show, you guys know me. I don't really, come up with wild expectations or anything like that. Some might call me boring, but but I don't want to be disappointed, right? I just don't. And so going into this show, I didn't have any expectations, and I can say that was it as good of a show as what Xbox has put on here recently? No. Was it the best, state of play of the year? No, most certainly not. Probably one of the worst state of plays that they've put on all year. But inherently, I don't think it was a bad show, right? I actually really enjoyed seeing a lot of the games that they showed off. We Are OFK. I thought that game looked really, really cool.
That looked like a Zemi Games game. That didn't look like
it got my attention. First Class Trouble. It kind of looks like Among Us with like better graphics, kind of Fallout-ish graphics.
It did look like Fallout, right? Like I'm not the only one that thought that.
It did, but it was also like Among Us, where like there's people in the space station who are trying to survive, and then they're like people that are trying to kill everyone. And I don't know. I thought it looked actually really, really good. And if I'm not mistaken, that's one of the games that's multi-plat, like it's going to come to Xbox as well. A lot of the games that they were showing off kind of seemed to be that they were going to be third party, like published kind of everywhere games, but just PlayStation marketing rights. And then the little devil inside, I really, really like that game. Like I'm very much
scary.
I saw it's so like low budget graphics that I don't think I would personally be scared by it, but there were those like little white zombie things that were attacking the player, and that just kind of turned me off for a quick second, but I think I could get past it.
I love it. That's great.
But I really did like that game. And I think you were talking about like the overview of the world. I think that's actually traveling to different locations on the map, and then it zooms into the actual like other gameplay feature.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
so that traveling on like the big open map is kind of like almost like a fast travel kind of feature or something. I don't know. I really saw a lot of very unique gameplay mechanics that I haven't ever noticed in games before. And I don't know. I thought that overall it was a half decent show. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I also didn't go in with huge major expectations of, we're going to see this or we're going to see that. I think I did hear some people, they were kind of, expecting Hogwarts Legacy to be shown off again because PlayStation has the marketing rights to that game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. That didn't happen, but I wasn't expecting it to happen. And that's a big reason why I always say, temper your expectations. Because I don't, for me personally, I don't want to be disappointed. I didn't think it was, the worst show that PlayStation could have ever made. I think for a lot of people, they probably didn't really enjoy it as much because there wasn't that really, really big AAA PlayStation banger that a lot of fans absolutely enjoy. But for me, I'm more of a hardcore Xbox player. I do own a PlayStation, but I'm definitely more casual where PlayStation is concerned. So to me, I thought it was a good show. I saw and was introduced to a lot of games that may have been talked about previously, but for this show was the first time I ever saw them. So to me, it's a win as a player because I got to see some games that I'm interested in playing in the future.
I mean, listen, you are being fair, obviously, and you are what would consider I mean, I would consider myself even a casual PlayStation player. Not maybe a little bit above casual because I play all of their single player games. Again, that's why I own a PlayStation. They do it the best, and that's why I enjoy it. I did not enjoy this show at all. I actually was quite disappointed, considering that. Again, we don't know what Sony's plans are. They certainly have a hard time sharing that with us. That is for sure. And we only know at the last minute, which is a little disappointing. I have a feeling that we should potentially, during the Game Awards, get something special. We know that obviously PlayStation and Jeff Keighley do have a connection. I mean, that's there. Folks, if you don't like him for it, I hear you, but I still like Jeff and what he does over there. And I'm expecting that we are going to get something there. So it's possible that they're holding out for that. But if this is their last show of the 21 campaign, man, talk about going off in a bad foot or jumping off on a bad foot. Mr. Joanna Dark, let's get your opinion on this. Look, one of the things I'm an old dude. I'm 51 years old, right? So I don't try and use these new kid terms. Of course, someone's gonna ring. You know, Mr. Joanna, let me get your opinion on it, and I'll come with my point after.
Sure. Yeah, so I think it's a tale of two companies, right? When it comes to Sony and Microsoft, at the beginning of the generation, Sony came in with some really great games to launch the PS5. You had Miles Morales, you had Demon Souls, excuse me. And you also had Bugsnax, which I still haven't played, but I want to go back to, and it's great to see that you have some DLC coming down the road, so I can kind of continue to, when I jump in, I can play that. I think what happened here was that kind of what I've seen in the past when it comes to marketing on both ends is that a company, say Microsoft or Sony went and they announced something, and then they had an event the same week. And what they did is to kind of keep that allure and keep that momentum, they let a lot of us, podcasters and shows kind of hype up the event.
Right. They let us run the gauntlet with what we're expecting to get the hype. Yeah, I completely understand.
But what I think happened here is that that's also a disservice on either end, whether it's Microsoft or Nintendo or something like that. They should have set expectations of saying, hey, look, we have some games from some amazing indie developers that we want to share with you, and kind of let it be that. Because we all know we're so close to the Game Awards that a lot of those big announcements are probably going to go over there to the Game
100%.
Awards.
Yeah.
So when I looked at some of these games, Deathverse is not for me. I saw some people saying that they're excited because it's in the Let It Die universe. Actually, that Rider Drift, I have played it on PC, and it reminded me the aesthetics of Mod Nation Races, which is one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Death's Door, I am so excited that more people get to try out that game, which is a Game of the Year contender.
Two people made that game, folks. Two people made that game. Game of the Year on many, many people's lists is going to be in my top 10 for sure.
When I saw Star Ocean, I said, did Sony buy Xenogears? Because it kind of had that aesthetic. And unfortunately, for years, Square hasn't done a great job in giving that game love, that franchise. But I am excited for Star Ocean, and hopefully it turns out well so I can play. First Class Troubled Citizens, I think is what it was called. I agree with Zemi. It kind of gave me that, vibe of kind of Among Us and everything like that. And it also looked to me like a generic Hitman with some of the stuff that I kind of going. So I'm gonna try it, right? It's gonna be on the service, so I'm gonna try it. I'm never gonna say, oh, this game is not great, because it may not be for me. But if it's in the service that I pay for, I'm gonna give it a try, and you never know. And then Little Devil Inside is one that has me really intrigued. It kind of has that kind of creepy kind of porcelain doll look, where it looks cute, but then there's more to it, and it can be kind of weird. So I really love how they close with that show. Actually, Five Nights at Freddy, I'm gonna say this. I know there's a lot of fans. I hope it doesn't come back. I'm not a big fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, but I know there's an actual following for that.
I mean, again, like many franchises, there's going to be a subset of people that enjoy it. That's a very niche, kind of a game for sure.
And then finally, we are OFK. That looked really cool, and I'm glad that you kind of said it, because I was like, is that a rhythm game? Again, I love these games, these kind of like niche games. The R4 Escape.
It's more of a story. Yeah, it's a story about a band, right? It's a pop band. Like I said, I thought that the writing for the segment that they did, kind of when they were talking, they were like, breaking the fourth wall, was interesting for sure.
Did you ever get to play After Party, which is another great game?
Yes,
and it kind of reminded me, not with the aesthetics, but kind of the premise of how the game might be. So I'm excited for that.
A lot of the same color palette from After Party as well.
I think overall, I think if expectation would have been set and kind of Sony say, hey, look, this is a small showcase kind of on third-party indie games, I think it would have been better, because these teams worked really hard for these games, and a lot of people kind of made it hyped. And people get hyped, and like Zemi, I don't get myself hyped when they show me the games and I see these shows, whether it's Xbox, Nintendo. I'm like, oh, you know what? This looks pretty cool. I hope they say it's available now so I can go ahead and purchase it. So overall, I think there was a variety of games that kind of spread out the portfolio on Sony's end. That's not just their first party, but kind of give a little taste of what people may want. You know, if you want something like Among Us, if you want a kart racer to kind of jump into, if you want to try Death Story, you've been holding out to play it on the PlayStation, it's there. If you love Five Nights at Freddy's, you can continue. Star Ocean, if you like JRPGs, as Sony continues to kind of be still the machine that a lot of JRPGs go to. And then if you continue to love fighting games, because of course, you know, they have Evo, they have Guilty Gears, you have King of the Fighters, which is a long-running franchise that's on there. So I think overall, to me, was it a disappointment? No. I went in saying, cool, these are some games that if you do play on the platform, they're going to be there for you. I'm definitely going to pick up Little Devil Inside. I'm definitely going to try out Star Ocean. So I think there's more to come. And I think it's going to be at the Game Awards or the long-rumored return of PSX, which at this point I don't think it's going to happen because I think they would have announced that.
Yeah, I'm there. I mean, PSX was when it was first launched and revealed. I mean, even if you weren't a Sony fan, you were watching it, right? Like that's how rabid those shows were. It would be tough to do a live one. Obviously, I don't think we get back to doing anything live to maybe the end of next year. Hopefully, we can get an E3 in this year. Zemi, I'd love to meet you in real life. We were talking about. I mean, I went to my first E3 in 2019 with the Iron Lords. We had it all set up. I mean, we had, thanks to King David, a mansion. I mean, it was going to be so good. And of course, you know, the pandemic basically ruined everything for everyone. But hopefully in 2022, we can get back to in-person, you know, even if it's limited. I'd love to get back to in person. I met so many people from Xbox, and we've talked about it last night on Twitter. I got a chance to meet Aaron Greenberg. That guy's a boss, man. He stops and talks to everybody. He is as I put it this way, he is what you see or what you think you see on the socials. He's that guy. He's like in real life. That's him. So it was great to meet him. I met everybody, but I didn't meet Phil. Could you imagine? The one dude that I wanted to sit there and say, hey, Phil, can I just have a 5-second conversation? And I missed him. You know why I missed him? I missed him because I was having my Halo Infinite poster signed by the team. Now, that poster is hung up somewhere, and that's dope, but I missed out on Phil Spencer. Shame on me. But yeah, good stuff as usual. You know, before I get into what VJ has to say, I got to thank some of the super chats. And of course, the first one comes in from man on the panel himself, Mr. Joanna Dark. He drops a very generous $5 super chat and says hello to the amazing panel of Zemi Games, VJ, and of course, the incredible host, Mr. Boom. Thank you for that, brother. That's very kind of you. Do not forget to vote for Mr. Boom at the Game Awards Future Class 2021. I'm going to drop that link in here momentarily because, look, folks, you got to sell yourself. And no one is going to give me the award or even give me the nomination unless you vote. Is it going to happen? Probably not. I mean, there are so many talented people out there. I don't know if I get on that list, but I would love to. That would be kind of dope. I'll drop that in a second. We also have Aaron JF, good friend of the show, drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Boom, you are awesome. Generally takes the time to give an ear to those in need. It's been a tough time. Yeah, Aaron, listen, brother, we talked in DM. What he's talking about is we had a very, very substantial question behind the scenes. Folks, if you DM me, I'm not an asshole. I will get back to you. I trust me, I get a lot of DMs. I try to answer everyone. The messages on Xbox Live, very difficult because there's a ton of them and I don't get a chance to play as much. And when I play, it takes away, I hate to say this, takes away me answering everybody from playing. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I only have so much time. But if you DM me, whether it be just to ask me a question, it's never a bother. I have people, hey, Mr. Boom, I'm sorry I'm bothering you. Trust me, you're not. If you're reaching out to me, it's because you want a question answered, and it'd be my pleasure in order to do so. And Aaron and I had a great conversation behind the scenes. So that's what he is referring to. And Aaron, glad to talk with you, brother. And I'm glad that you're feeling better. We have Quabini Gaming. drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, Boom, as you know, I'm a truck driver, and I want to say thank you for your service, because without the fleet of truck drivers that are bringing our goods, folks, we wouldn't have stuff on the shelves. So when you see a truck driver, give them a word of thanks, because there is still a pandemic and it's still dangerous to do your job. He continues with, I've been driving since 4 a.m. Oh my God, dude. Sorry about that. He says, I'm so glad you're on this morning. Gives me something to listen to. Thank you. Well, thank you for listening, dude. I appreciate it. Good friend of the show, Bunty, drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, remember when people kept saying Sony does the best show? And I kept saying that this is not the old Sony. Times have changed. And Xbox has been doing great shows. Yeah, we absolutely do. And for sure, you're 100% right. I don't know what has changed. But I will say this. If you look back at history, right, we saw a changing of the guard from PS2 to PS3, right? Wii to Wii U, Xbox 360 to Xbox One, right? When you see those big seismic changes, it's not just at big positions within the company. A lot of the times when someone comes in and takes over, bring a lot of their own people. That's every business, folks. That's just everyone. Everyone does that. And I don't necessarily know what has changed at Sony regarding their marketing, but it's not good. I've said this before. They are the masters of marketing. They have been. They did such an incredible job where they logistically curb stomped Microsoft last gen. They beat them at every aspect of marketing. And that tenacity is not there. That's what he's referring to, and I would 100% agree. Brian Hopkins, generous friend of the show, he drops a $10 super chat and says, just dropping in to say hi and show support before getting back to work. Good morning, panel. Thank you for all you do for the show today. Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for the generosity, but thank you for the compliments. Definitely appreciate that. And we have Danny Passion Official drops a very generous $5 super chat with a wave emoji and says, panel, let's go. If anyone is on the fence to get Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, you didn't have problems with linear game, you won't be disappointed. Just completed it, dude. I am in chapter 5. We're going to talk about what we're playing, folks. I gotta tell you, as someone that walked away from Avengers unbelievably disappointed for a multitude of reasons. Graphically, game was great. Story was actually pretty good. As for a comic book-esque story, pretty good. Character models, fantastic. The loot, god awful. Again, we had a whole conversation in the room. Could have been a podcast itself. This is not that. I was on the fence. I didn't care about this game, not because I didn't care about the Guardians. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I was like, yeah, after Avengers, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And then I listened to Greg Miller and the dudes and that crew from Kinda Funny. I listened to their games cast regarding this. Surprisingly, Greg didn't like it, which is crazy because Greg loves Marvel and DC stuff. Like, I thought he was going to give this rave review. He didn't. It was actually Blessing and the rest of the crew that were like, yeah, this is going to be my top 10 at the end of the year. I'm like, whoa, wait a second, I got to see this. And they kept talking, and I looked at some of the reviews and I said, you know what, I got a bunch of GameStop credit, let me just go and buy this game. And folks, I'm telling you right now, it's really good. It is so good that I tweeted about it, and I'm gonna say this live on the air because this doesn't happen very often, because like I said in a private room, Boom is just nobody, right? He's just a gamer. I'm just like you guys. I have a podcast. Okay, great. James Gunn himself, Mr. Guardians of the Galaxy, favorited that tweet. I'm never washing this hand again, folks. I'm never washing this tweeting hand again. And of course, Stubbs Gaming, generous friend of the show, drops an outstanding £2 super chat and says, great panel, Boom. I hope VJ has tea. Yes, in fact, I asked him that before we went even live, and yes, he has had his tea. And speaking of VJ, one of the reasons why we love you on the show, besides your incredible vocabulary, besides the way that you actually break these topics down, I say this all the time, you have had a very unique way of seeing the gaming industry from multiple perspectives in your career. And seeing from a marketing point of view, a show like this could hurt Sony to the point where if you were on the fence and you were like, "Well, I'm excited," because everyone's like always excited about a Sony show. This was not that show. This was very disappointing. It felt very thrown together. What are your thoughts on it?
I didn't watch it, to be quite honest with you, and I'll try to give a little bit of a different perspective to the other gents, just so that the audience have got something else to chew on. I think JD, Mr. JD, kindly sort of alluded to the point in regards to the toing and froing of the spotlight due to the shifting of game releases and production schedules because of the recent Universal event that occurred, and I think he's right. Sony shined earlier on in the generation, and this quarter specifically, it's Xbox's time to shine.
Yeah.
But these things happen, right? And it's not as if it's unexpected, given the infrastructure that Microsoft's been putting in place for more than 3 years now, as far as I can recall. And you guys are far more well versed in terms of Microsoft's history and Xbox division's history in particular to set me straight. So in terms of the show, I'm kind of taking a different viewpoint from it. From a gamer's point of view, well, and I guess as an RPG fan, Star Ocean was the only all-important announcement for me, which someone told me about post the streaming of the show, and I watched some of the titles roll by. There was somebody that did an edit, sort of like a 2-minute edit of the game shown. So I watched that, and I know that many of the games kind of reminded me of the time when I watched Backbone, which I think it was on Xbox Idea Xbox show, and I was sort of enamored with it when I first saw it, and which is in Game Pass right now. Funnily enough, I noticed it yesterday. I downloaded it, so everything I saw on there, unless it's like specifically been earmarked to be exclusive for the Sony platform, which I don't think it was, everything will pretty much turn up or find its way to Xbox. The game Xbox's sort of Game Pass subscription service. So that was I think is a key point. So that's from a selfish gamer's point of view, right? And then you've got to look at it kind of from Sony corporate standpoint. There are two major games, I think, in Gran Turismo and Horizon Zero Dawn, both slipped. Perhaps they would have seen a release this fourth quarter, but you have to look at Sony's history for the last 3 or 4 years, as far back as I can remember. Only Death Stranding has released in the fourth calendar year quarter, because Sony typically shy away or leave that for third parties. They really do retreat from fourth quarter releases. They prefer to sort of release in March, just prior to their financial year end, and they like to dominate summer, in terms of not being out of E3, but delivering, a banger, right? At that point of the year, or sandwich summer with a release in, I'd say, April, May, and September, and that's been their recent pattern for the last three or 4 years. So, from Sony's standpoint, at the same time, when they do release financial results, they often afford the public and more so their shareholders a glimpse of forthcoming releases. It's become an obligatory custom if you track back and monitor what they do. And again, Sony, like Xbox and any major corporation, has a large marketing and PR division who can't simply be seen to be sitting around drinking coffee, awaiting releases to hit schedules so they can get to work. And obviously, first quarter for them next year. First calendar quarter next year, and their fourth quarter financial year is going to be pretty busy for them. And every division in a corporation has to be contributing to the purpose all of the time, regardless of what division of the company or organization you work in. And every promotional step is pretty much sort of, or I say promotional and marketing step is pretty much carved into a PR and marketing schedule. I mean, how can a VP, sit in a monthly or quarterly meeting with nothing planned, prepared, or orchestrated, regardless of the fact that games may have slipped, first-party games may have slipped, I guess is the point here, and turn up sort of empty-handed and with nothing to show, and that doesn't really show that you're being you're being creative, right, in managing all the resources that are probably sitting there at the disposal, right, to promote under his or her disposal. I don't know who's in charge to promote PlayStation. You simply can't be sitting, as I say, you simply can't be seen to be sitting around on your hands, right? A company like Sony, if you work there, you've got to do whatever you can, right, to show that you've got your position, you're going to maintain your position, and it's got to be done on a consistent basis. So in itself, I think Sony's PR and marketing team or machine are contributing what they can based on what they have on hand, which is very little. I think Zemi's pointed that out, and they are doing what they can for the PlayStation brand, as I say, in lieu of Horizon, Forbidden West, and Gran Turismo, and God of War, etc., and so on and so forth. You guys probably know the games better than I do. So Sony clearly, I have to say this, is that stated that this was a third-party content showing, and as soon as I'd seen that line prior to the show going live, I already switched off. But then you've got to look at it from a third-party developer or publisher perspective, right, for indie games, and I think what's most important for these guys, and why I think the show, there's a silver lining to it specifically for these people, is eyes on their games. And I was going to say, refer to Fei Wong's "Eyes on Me," the Final Fantasy VIII main theme. But yeah, I love that game. Sorry, when the game released, I watched the intro about 15 times, right? But before I even started playing the game. Anyway, I don't want to go off on a tangent. So anyway, we've seen that. We've seen time and time again what it means to developers, especially indie developers, to have their games, which we know, Boom, they infuse or imbue, sort of blood, sweat, and tears, right? And to have your game, showcased on a platform holder's screening or live event or whatever, or digital event or whatever, is something fantastic. And I think Joe, the developer of Song of Iron, a very good friend of yours, Boom, which is well known to you, would have told you, and anyone, who would care to listen, I guess, right, how much it meant to him and his family and his friends, right, that have supported him through his journey, to be showcased on the Idea Xbox's State of Play equivalent, a proud moment in anyone's history. And 90% of content creating, people aspiring to create games, don't make it. And then even, perhaps even a fraction of those guys that do make it get to have their game showcased, or as I say, on an event such as this. And I think also, while it's not one of Sony's best outings, far from it, I should say, I think there's loads of psychological connotations in play here, which I won't go into. It's probably an offline chat or a completely different marketing PR podcast in itself. We may have to invite Zemi on for that one, but I don't know if he'll be on loan or if we'll have to pay for him to come over from Xbox or Xbox Factor podcast. But anyway, nonetheless, I think that there is perhaps a deeper, considerable logic to why Sony did this. And as gamers, perhaps we don't really care. But from my perspective, because I do look at things at a slightly different perspective, if I can, labeling it tawdry, that one's for you, Zemi, is perhaps a little harsh. And if you don't, sorry, I shouldn't usually really use words but like that, but it basically means sort of like, showy but cheap and poor quality. But yeah, but labeling it tawdry, I think is perhaps a little harsh. And that's my take on it.
Listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion. Obviously, no one likes labels, but again, this is what I was going to say before I was rudely interrupted by UPS, who dropped off a package. And that's always homage to the early days of Kind of Funny, when Greg Miller would make a joke out of it. You got to keep it 100, right? In recent years, we have seen many people in the community as well as the media immediately jump down Microsoft's throat for a bad showing. Didn't see much of that, which is, that's kind of just to be expected. It is what it is, This was a poor showing. This was, and I'm going to be honest with you. VJ, you bring up a great point. If you are a small developer and your game that you've been working on, that you have your cousin working on, and your mom, doing the advertising, because you're that small, and we all start out that small. I actually think it was a detriment to them, because no one walked away from this. Most people turned it off. No, most people didn't get through the entire thing. I got through it twice, by the way, 2 times, because I wanted to make sure, which is ridiculous.
Incredible.
Now, I'm not going to sit here in front and didn't say I didn't kind of fast forward things, but I take my notes and then I go back and I make sure certain things, release dates or whatever. I want to make sure that I'm very specific with when I write these shows. So technically, I watched it twice, and it was worse the second time. And I know many people that walked away from this and didn't get through it once. So if you are said small developer, and this was where people saw your game, maybe they didn't. That's because Sony threw this together. They threw this together, in my opinion, to attempt to take views away or excitement away from the Halo news. That's what it seemed like to me. That's why you do these things, because this wasn't scheduled months in advance. This was thrown together, and it did seem like that, and that's why I said what I said, and everyone is entitled to their opinion on, were there some interesting things there? Sure, absolutely. But
and it's Mr. Boom. It's funny that you say that, because usually what I like about some of the state of plays is that they transition nicely and everything is nicely placed together, of like the type of games that you get, from scene to scene. And for some reason, the pacing just felt a little bit off. Like, like putting this game with this game right after another, it just felt like something, when we put a PowerPoint together right away, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes, absolutely. Great point, dude. Great point.
And at the end of the day, like I said before, they were great games. I just feel that there should be, similar to like Nintendo, where there should be a separate state of play that really highlights these amazing indie developers, so they can get visual, eyes on these amazing games coming to not only Sony but maybe other platforms, but specifically for Sony fans. And overall, just kind of, keep those expectations, because I think one of the things now that we've been in this unfortunate, change of the world, is that we think that every single show needs to be a 10. And that's not necessarily true. I like sometimes kind of getting my snacks in between and kind of getting those little in between as I await for the bigger titles. But there definitely can be a state of play that's, they can name it the way Nintendo does with, like, State of Indies or something like that.
Yeah.
Where it definitely highlights these hardworking people that are working on these amazing games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, folks, again, we're going to get into the 2 big topics now. I'm glad you're hanging around. We have almost 350 people here, which is awesome. Real quick, before we get into the nitty gritty, if you will, got to make a special announcement. This upcoming Monday's primetime gaming is going to be monster for a couple of reasons. One, it's Mrs. BoomStick's birthday, November 1st. Now, normally I take off. Like, I'm spending time with her. She didn't want no part of that, because we're technically celebrating with her sisters the following weekend. In the Spanish heritage, celebrating your birthday before, bad luck. Don't do it. And obviously, we're going to have a little thing, just me and her, and hang out this weekend and play a little Mario Party, the new one that just launched, and just hang out. But her actual event is going to be the following weekend. But what we're doing for primetime gaming, and why I'm actually still doing the show, is at her request. She is now adding to the lists of giveaways that we do each and every year. Is she wanted her own day. So we're doing a Mrs. Broom's birthday bash. And you folks are going to be the recipients of $300 that she donated. $300 worth of gift cards, 6 $50 gift cards that we're giving away. If you are a channel member, you're going to get an extra entry. If you drop a super chat, you get an extra entry. And if you're in the chat, you get a total of 3. Total of 3 entries, and it just brings your shot of getting a prize, one of the $50 gift cards of your choice. PlayStation, Nintendo, Xbox. You tell us where you want it, we send it to you, and we're even opening this up to the UK. And I say that because I know that we can't transfer Xbox monies, but if you are in the UK and you do win, there are a multitude of cash apps. There's a multitude of if you have PayPal, we'll send you the money. We pay the back end price of sending the money. So don't worry, UK, you are involved as well. And that is going to be 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, primetime gaming. But it's not just that. We have 2 monster guests that are joining us to celebrate Mrs. Boom's birthday. and one of which is my brother, Lord Cognito from the Iron Lords podcast will be joining us. But we're also getting special Nick from Xbox Era to join us. Those are two monster, podcasters, content creators. Hopefully he'll bring maybe a special, birthday news drop. We don't know, you never know what you're going to get with Nick. But we are going to get his famous opening that you do get with him every time he's on Xbox. How you doing? We hopefully we'll get that as well. So yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, prime time gaming, and the lead topic, folks, is something that my brother King David has been talking about for quite some time. And what is that? Is that Sony is getting into the PC game, and that was announced, and that set the internet on fire. I have written a show around what has happened, and folks, Sony has announced yesterday that they have an entire PC PlayStation division. I think it's only a matter of time before day and date is happening. But there were a lot of PlayStation owners that were very upset. Let's just say that. We're going to break it down with our guests and our panel. But let me just catch up with two in the super chats. One comes in, and this is awesome because I saw this name mentioned multiple times on ILP when I was a guest. And here he is dropping not only a super chat, but he's subscribed to the channel, which is dope. All the way from India, folks. Gameonomics drops a very generous, and this says it's 100 rupees, which is equivalent of $5. Well, thank you for the generosity because you don't actually have to drop anything. He says, I had zero expectations from State of Play, and I am still disappointed. P.S. I subscribed to you after you came on ILP. Currency is Indian rupees, by the way. Well, thank you, brother. Definitely appreciate that. Let's see what else we got over here. Your mic volume is fine, Joanna Dark. It's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry don't even sweat it. We have Gerald Mack drops an additional $2 super chat. And what he says, folks, head over to the Xbox store or Microsoft store. Apparently, after a $2 super chat, the Series X is available to add to cart. So check that out immediately. If you don't have an X, if you're looking to get one, whether it is to sell, don't do that, or potentially get for a loved one for Christmas. Now might be a chance. Lazy Couch Gamer drops a very generous £5 super chat and says, did you guys see the dislikes on Dr. Disrespect's video? LOL, hating on Halo doesn't seem to be the AU Vogue thing to do anymore. Look, here's the thing. What could a guy with 9,000 subs say about Dr. Disrespect other than he's going to do what he's going to do for money, right? And I think they are saying that, listen, hating on Xbox, not cool anymore. It used to be a thing. A lot of people built their channels on that. I won't mention them here because I don't respect them. And, if I don't respect someone, I just keep it, behind the scene. I don't have to talk about anyone. I'm not looking to get clout that way. You come to the channel because you like the good content. Some people got very popular. Some people have thousands more than me in subs because they built their channels on hate. Not something you're going to get here. We don't do that here. We bring topics you want to talk about, and that's what I want to get into next, folks. We got to get into now. This is again a smaller topic that no one is talking about, but I think it's worthy of a conversation for a multitude of reasons. And then we're going to close the show with the Starfield conversation and why I think, just based on that, Microsoft might have already won 2022. But let's talk about award seasons, folks. Award season is upon us. And we are obviously the granddaddy of any year for the past several years is Jeff Keighley's Game Awards 2021. And for good reason. I mean, obviously, it is viewed by the most. He does have an incredible reach when it comes to who he's going to get there, what he's going to get there. A lot of, never before reveals. We've seen Microsoft just in 2019 just completely just drop bombs, with the Series X and Hellblade announcement. No one saw that coming. But Games Radar, who is not small on the totem pole, I mean, they're a pretty big, website. They're holding their 39th annual Golden Joystick Awards. And one of the studios that is leading in nominations is Double Fine Studios, led by industry icon Tim Schafer, with Psychonauts 2. And it has received 6 nominations, folks. And here is what it was nominated for. Best Storytelling, Best Visual Design, Xbox Game of the Year, Best Performance, Ultimate Game of the Year, and Double Fine as Studio of the Year. Now, listen, I don't have an investment in the studio because I'm just a fan, but I'm getting goosebumps. And I can only imagine that if you worked at the studio and you're reading what you're being nominated for, they must be ecstatic. Again, we talked on the opening of the show. This is a game that is very different than what was originally going to be sold, because it was a Kickstarter game. It was a crowdfunder. It wasn't Kickstarter. It was a crowd-funded game. And a lot of the boss battles, a lot of the end game stuff that Microsoft allowed Tim Schafer to finish that team and finish their views and their dreams of what they wanted Psychonauts 2 to become, we're all playing right now. Zemi, I want to go to you first on this. This is exciting, not from a console war point of view, from the studio that could have potentially been one of those studios that found its way out of business because they just did not make enough money. They get purchased by Xbox or Microsoft inundates them with spendable monies, allows them to not only finish the game, but finish the game when they said it was finished. This game had multiple release dates prior. It was delayed several times. And, some people may say that's a curse. It's a blessing. This is one of those times where you look at the delays that came with this and you look at what the final product was, and it is not only going to potentially win all 6 of these nominations. I believe it wins all 6. I believe that whatever it was nominated for, Zemi, it sweeps. But I think that this is going to be play a major or actually throw a monkey wrench into and shake up the Game Awards, get Jeff Keighley's Game Awards, and potentially do a Last of Us kind of a walkthrough. Where do you fall on Psychonauts 2? Are you happy to see Tim Schafer and that team getting these awards?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I absolutely enjoyed Psychonauts. I mean, incredibly, right? And I'm not the biggest platformer fan, right?
Right.
But I absolutely just loved Psychonauts 2 to pieces. It was a fantastic, phenomenal game. And, any awards or nominations that it gets, it most certainly deserves 100%. And the story of the studio and the trials and tribulations of it and how Microsoft acquired it and with the extra funding, Double Fine was able to, add in additional features and completely finish their vision that was Psychonauts 2 is very inspiring, and it's just a fantastic story all the way around. Now, as far as it sweeping the Game Awards, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's going to happen, nor do I expect that, kind of thing to happen, just because, there's there's a lot of games that came out this year, and a lot of really, really good games that has came out this year. And, whenever we're talking about the Game Awards, whatever outlet we're talking about it with, whether it's the Video Game Awards that's created by Jeff Keighley, or it's Games Radar, or whatever other outlet, everything is always just based in, and what each publication or what each, personally liked. It's very objective, right?
Oh, for sure.
And And not to also mention that, different, entities or organizations that do award shows, they have different methods in which, they nominate games. And there's different people, of course, that actually nominate each game at every organization. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I expect or I think should happen that Psychonauts kind of runs across the Game Awards and wins multiple awards. I definitely think that it is deserving 100% of winning at least one or two awards, namely probably Platformer of the Year, I think. But there's so many great games that came out this year. I don't think it's fair to necessarily say that Psychonauts should run the mill and get all of the awards. I don't really particularly like seeing that happen at any Game Awards show. I want everyone to be able to jump in and win some accolade for the hard work that they put in, right? With that being said, some games are just exceptionally really, really good and should win a couple of awards at each show. But overall, I think it will be nominated for a couple of different, sections during the Game Awards. And I would like to see it win Platformer of the Year, maybe another section. It's very deserving. But like I said, a lot of games came out this year. There's a lot of competition. Even whenever just looking at Xbox's first party, the games that have come out this year, there's a lot of great competition to go against Psychonauts for Game of the Year. Halo Infinite, Forza Horizon 5, which looks graphically just absolutely incredible. There's a lot of competition this year for sure.
I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm not trying to promote that a said game should win all because of its story. What I'm saying is that this is a game, a first party game, right? That's multi-plat, right? If they hit the nail with the writing, and they did, hit the nail with the storytelling, they did, hit the nail with the graphics and the boss interaction and the overarching story and the replayability, and you want to factor in Studio of the Year, I absolutely think it should win all. It should sweep. If it gets nominated 9 times at the Game Awards, I don't care who it's going up against. Whether it goes Halo, it can go up against. I would want to see the little studio that could win it all. I'd like to see them get up there and literally be so tired by the end of the night that they walked up there that when he goes and checks his stepper, he's at 13,000 steps. Because that many times he's walked up and back and forth.
I don't think that the video game award should be, which studio do we like the most. I think it should really be based off of the actual games that
no. But
and we haven't even played Halo Infinite, nor have we played Forza Horizon, nor have we played a lot of other games that are still set to come out this year. So I don't think it's the safest thing to say, hey, we should hopefully they win everything, because we still haven't played a lot of games that are still set to come out this year.
No, I mean, listen, well, first of all, Halo isn't going to be in the conversation unless they do some sort of a special entry, because it's
true, because it's past. Absolutely.
Right? I think that you could potentially. I said this before about Forza Horizon 5. Based on what we've seen, it's probably going to be a Game of the Year for many people. It's going to win Sports/Racer of the Year without even. It doesn't even have to show up. It should have to just sit home and just expect someone to knock at the door to hand them the trophy, because the game is going to be that good. I still think that it could potentially be in the actual end of Game of the Year, those 6 or 7, 8 titles. It could potentially be there as well, and I'd like to see it. But I'm not going to sit here and suggest that just because of the story they should win it. The game is just that good. And I think that if they get nominated 6 times, they're getting nominated because they deserve to be there. And I think that even if they go up against something like, for instance, many fan favorites, Death's Door is going to be a lot of people's Game of the Year. It's in my top 10 for sure. I wouldn't pick Death's Door over Psychonauts for a multitude of reasons. And it's not because I'm trying to jump on a console bandwagon, because Death's Door is an Xbox exclusive until the end of November when it releases on the PlayStation. So it's not that. It's just that it's one of those stories that you see the end product. The end product is as good as we're being sold, and you have to add the story to that. A lot of the voting for a lot of people, at least for me, is what we're getting. It is the story, it is the gameplay, it is the control, it is the replayability. Those are super important. But the little sprinkle on top of this delicious banana boat sundae that they've presented me is the story of this game may not have been what we're playing if it wasn't for Microsoft stepping in during the and announcing at the at E3 2019 that they purchased them. This game would not be the same game. It might be a shell of its former self. So yes, the story does play, but for me, all the accolades, it's important that that we do talk about it. But your point is well taken, Mr. Joanna Dark. Let's get your opinion on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to raise your volume of your mic. And let's get your opinion on this. This is again, it's a fun story, because these are the type of experiences, these are the type of accolades that we have seen PlayStation and Nintendo run the gauntlet with, right? We've seen Nintendo in the same year drop Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey, two iconic games that are Switch classics that, by the way, are still full price. PS, by the way, 18 years later, it's still full price. And they were both in that Game of the Year conversation because both games deserve to be there. It wasn't that, it's the return of Nintendo because the Switch is great. It was that these games were great. And now I think that we're going to start seeing that with a lot of the Microsoft games. And I think the first two to get in that conversation is, of course, Forza Horizon, but more importantly, Psychonauts 2. Where do you feel on the accolades that it's starting to receive and should continue to receive through award season?
So I took some notes as I was looking at this, for the Golden Joystick Awards and kind of what they were nominated. So these are some of the ones that I agree that they could probably win. I think best storytelling. I thought it was an amazing story,
yes.
Especially one that did justice not only for returning players, but for players that have never even jumped into the series.
Yes.
And it had some really, really deep, mature undertones, but in a way, it kept it also light. So I love that kind of balance that despite this really dark story, there was kind of a little, light tone to it. I think visual designs, I loved Psychonauts overall, top down, from the levels to the characters to the overall, just kind of like the art style. It reminded me of my favorite movies, like these Tim Burton's kind of Nightmare Before Christmas type, claymation type titles. Studio of the Year, I think for years, Double Fine has been an amazing studio, and kind of like we've seen with In Exile, and we've seen with some other studios, like we can go on House Marquee. What happens when you actually have the resources and the backing of a Microsoft and a Sony to really flesh out the vision of something that you want to do, and I think that's great. Best performer, I disagree with Elijah Wood because I did like Jack Black's character, but I also think we can have Colt from Deathloop and Maggie from Lady Dimitrescu in Resident Evil Village.
Yes, those are great picks too. Great picks, and I think that Deathloop is gonna see its fair share of awards as well.
Ultimate Game of the Year. Here's where I kind of go back also to what Zemi was saying. This year has been kind of weird in the sense that there hasn't been a game like, per se, example 2018, God of War, hands down to me, was the best game of that. Or when we had The Last of Us, hands down the best game of that generation. We've had some amazing games that have been Game of the Year contenders that anyone can win. I go with Hitman 3. You forgot about Hitman 3 in January. I thought that was a phenomenal conclusion to the Hitman overall story arc that IO did. Deathloop, which I know currently is a PlayStation, but also on PC where I played it. I love the story of Deathloop. I thought it was
the writing is phenomenal.
the best parts of a culmination of everything that Arcane has done with, Dishonored, with Prey, kind of coming together. I just beat it last week, and it's just like, wow. And then I also have Death's Door, which harkens back to my favorite Zelda, of course, A Link to the Past, and I love that game. And then, as a Nintendo fan, Metroid Dread, The Return of Samus. And I think that game, yes, people can argue it's a tired and true formula, but you know what? There are little things here and there in the details. I think Digital Foundry did a great job in the sense of how Samus moves and kind of putting those details to immerse you into that world. So to me, can Psychonauts win ultimately? Oh, of course. I think it has everything going for it when you kind of said as well with like Mario Odyssey and everything like that. But I also see other ones that can also kind of go in there, and I wouldn't be surprised. I was a little bit upset last year when Doom Eternal didn't get any type of awards, which I thought Doom Eternal was fantastic as a game overall. And you're going to see different outlets. IGN has one. PC Gamer has one. They all have these different awards. Of course, Jeff Keighley is the biggest stage, of course, the Game Awards. So many of us take that into account. But I think throughout the years, you're going to see different outlets give Game of the Years. Now, can we have a Hades situation where it just runs away through every single outlet? Of course. Yeah. And I think Psychonauts 2 is a incredible game that brought tears to my eyes, and I loved it as a franchise. I even purchased the Rhombus of Ruin and played it on Oculus just to make sure I got everything of the story. And if they do win, I would say it would be Best Storytelling, Studio of the Year, and Best Visual Design would be my take when it comes to some of the things they might take if they don't take the Ultimate Game of the Year.
And I mean, again, great stuff from you. Great stuff from Zemi. You guys bring up some great points. The disturbance before, folks, if you want to know who rang the bell, where's my camera? Yes, I am a Switch guy, and I do buy all my stuff old school style, because here's the thing. If you didn't know, if you're ever in a jam financially, and we all are at times, right? Like I don't find myself to be in that way anymore because I'm very specific. As a retired guy, you got to learn to live a little different when it's just a one check. Like, I used to work overtime for games. That was easy. Hey, I'll just work this detail over the weekend, work 8 hours, and as an NYPD, we did all right for ourselves. So I would actually pay for my games through overtime. I can't do that anymore. So I have Game Pass is big, which saves me a lot of money. But yeah, I buy all my stuff physically for Nintendo, because if you ever had to sell it, folks, you're getting maximum money. They're the only ones that hold such unbelievable value. And that's something that me and Mrs. Boom are going to be playing this weekend. And one of our favorite games from, I think it's Mario Party 2, Eats a Pizza. I can't wait. Again, it's silly. It's silliness. But you know what? That's what gaming is all about.
Mr. Boom, $44 for Mario Kart Double Dash still in 2021.
There you go, folks. Perfect example. If you have that game and you need money, $44, you could probably you could sell that on eBay for $40, maybe even 50, and get it. VJ, I want to get your opinion on this. This is a very unique topic because it's a lot of emotion. It is a lot of what ifs, right? It's a lot of speculation. We're not going into speculation town for this one, but the Golden Joystick Awards is confident, and this is their 39th annual. They've been doing it for a very, very long time, and Games Radar has been around a bit, right? They're one of those they're high production value. They're up there. And seeing that's a game that would have been incredibly different if it wasn't for Microsoft stepping in and doing what they did, to get these kind of awards, these kind of accolades is it's great. It's great to see. I'm happy for Tim Schafer. I'm happy for the small team, by the way, at Double Fine Studio. They are considered by many to be considered a bit of an indie themselves because of the size. Where do you particularly fall with everyone's commentary, and more specifically about the awards that they are being nominated for?
Look, I can understand why people gravitate right to an annual award show, full of sort of splendor, ceremony, trophies, distinctions, and accolades, and and the circus that sort of inevitably ensues. I don't particularly watch them now in my latter years, but honors and awards aside, it's just something JD said that sort of sparked a thought on me, and I put all that sort of stuff aside, since as Zemi was saying, these are always perhaps pretty close run things behind the scenes. I don't know what's actually made visible to us in terms of why and how these things are awarded. And the other reason why I kind of stay away from them is because once the awards are dished out, right, they often cause division, if not heated debate, within an ecosystem, let alone sort of versus another ecosystem. And back to the point that JD was making, the reason why perhaps they're not as important, because you only have to look at the reception Psychonauts 2 received, which, let's be honest, Boom, prior to the release of the game, I think we discussed like Tim Schafer, Double Fine about 2 or 3 times, right, in the space of about 4 weeks, and as topics on the usual Thursday show, and as I say, when you look at Psychonauts, for me anyway, it brought, as JD was saying, a shapely smile and a pleasant feeling to many gamers, if not all gamers, that have actually sat down and wholeheartedly experienced it, right, rather than sort of just consuming the content, which I think a lot of it does go on, right, in present day, just due to the sheer amount of content that's available for us to enjoy. So if you look at Double Fine, their latest game, right, Psychonauts 2, regardless of sort of nominations, honors, and trophies, I think that they should receive an award. And again, I'm just staying in tune with JD. They should receive an award for being able to produce a universal title that perhaps sort of emanates an exuberance, a humor, a joy, a youthfulness, a sprightliness, right, something along those lines, right, that all gamers can enjoy and are pretty much, well, I found myself enamored to the game. And I think if you're open-minded enough, open-hearted enough, accepting enough, and benevolent enough, I think you'll find, like playing Psychonauts 2, that it kind of hits a cheery mark, right, on many occasions, right, throughout the beats of the game, right, and the gameplay loop, and it kind of encapsulates, and I think this is a lot to do with Tim Schafer. I think he's pretty young at heart. It kind of encapsulates an energy a few other games do, especially considering, the relatively sort of recorded, modest resources that the game received and that were available to the studio. Look, I kind of have to mention Ratchet and Clank. I haven't played the latest Ratchet and Clank, therefore I can't tell you if Insomniac's sort of far bigger budget game evokes the same energy that one imbibes from Experience Psychonauts 2. What I mean to say is that perhaps both games continually drive a player's imagination and need for discovery, because they're both they're just so creative, but they do it in an exuberant and sparkling way, unlike many other games. But the key difference being, it's expected from Insomniac, right? And Double Fine was the little studio that could. And that sentiment is not wasted on me, on you, Boom, and I think perhaps many listeners that tune into this show, or whoever's dumb enough to listen to me. But at the same time, that I sort of personally sort of acknowledge and understand that recognition, appreciation, remembrance, recalling of great memories are factors depending on on your conditioning and stuff like that. Even though I'm not sort of really interested in the show, I can understand why a trophy may also be good for for company morale, more tangibly help studios sort of securing support from publishers, funding, growing in trust, especially when they're looking for their next project, right, or funding for the next project. And it's always good to have an accolade cabinet with with the trophies inside it, right? Especially if it's sitting in your pretty reception area. And so I can understand the point of the event and how it can help studios, but I think Tim, I think he's, as I say, he's produced a game that captured my imagination. He and the individuals at Xbox that championed the studio have my thanks. And I would say, Boom, if I was just looking at a cold light a day, I think it's subscription dollars put to good use. But the truth is, no matter how much we talk about the game, I think Tim doesn't, or want him to receive awards and so on and so forth. And I can't sit here as judge and jury, because that wouldn't be right, because I don't even know all the other games that are nominated, and I probably haven't played any of them, or very few of them. But the truth is, Tim doesn't need it. Someone like him, who's been around for so long, he knows how to row his boat, and he's been around the block, or the Castle Moat, or the Bay Area, if you prefer. I would like to. I would like to see how Tim performs with a larger budget, more in line with sailing let's say a modern super yacht, right, rather than a small rowing boat. And that, for me, is far more interesting. And there's a point you made very early on in the build-up to the topic, Boom, where you said you can't wait to see what he comes up with next. And that's exactly where I am right now.
Yeah,
I'm hungry for more. And as I say, with a larger budget, with his super yacht, perhaps he'll turn the yacht into a studio. Who knows? Studio on the Thames or something. Anyway, for me, that's far more interesting than any awards ceremony. And I think, and I say that because it's after these award ceremonies pass, no one other than a handful will recall, remember, or commit such events to memory. But they will commit Psychonauts to the game. And as JD was saying, right, the sentiment in terms of the memories and the thoughts that he was evoking from his experience of playing the game, right, even to the point where perhaps he had a tear in his eye. And it's probably because it was in Game Pass, but I'm not judging. But again, award or no award, we can all agree or disagree, whatever, right? I think the key thing for me, Boom, when we talked about Tim prior to even launching the game, is that when he takes center stage prior to the game's launch and whatever he ends up showing in the future, when he appears on that stage, we're all somewhat leavened, right, by his presence. And I hope that continues in the future. So
I don't doubt it. That it will. Mr. Joanna Dark, you want to jump in with something regarding Ratchet?
Yeah. So I thought Ratchet and Clank was a phenomenal game. I loved it. As a huge fan of the series, but I just felt that it didn't expand on, in the sense of kind of reinvent of what a platformer is. Yes, it had these nice things where you can kind of go into these portals, and it was pretty cool. But I can't wait to see what they do next with Ratchet, and kind of come back and kind of reinvent it with some other cool things. The storytelling, it was short, but that's fine. I like these tight-knit experiences. But again, not a knock on it, because I always like more of the same, and that's always great. But to me, it just didn't feel like kind of like when I jumped into, again, Psychonauts, since we're talking about it, where I played the original and I came to Psychonauts 2, and I said, like, wow, tighter storytelling, tighter platforming, and just overall kind of Tim Schafer unleashing his creativity, due to the fact, let me skim on this because I don't have the actual financials to do this. And he even said it with the boss fights. And we forget that for years Double Fine's been making games like Grim Fandango, Costume Quest, all these amazing games. And I think in the end, the reason these awards are being given is because it's kind of a redemption story of a person who's been such a big thing in the industry, and he's finally got to unleash his creativity to its full potential to an extent.
Yeah, no, great point. I mean, listen, what could you say? But again, I'm happy for Tim, happy for the team over there, and I agree with everyone. I honestly cannot wait to see what he is going to do. And of course, whatever they're going to do next, it's going to be their decision. Microsoft isn't saying, hey, make the next Banjo-Kazooie, even though I would love for them to do that. That's not going to happen. Tim already said it, so my heart's broken. But whatever it is, it is going to be an original Tim Schafer Double Fine product, and it's going to have an incredible story, and it's going to have incredible graphics, and it's going to be it's going to be unique in its own Tim Schafer kind of a way. That's very exciting. But we have to get into the biggest topic of the evening of today. And we're going to be talking some Starfield. I know Zemi Games can't wait to get into that. Now, I do want to go first to Joanna Dark on this because I know he's limited. I think you have to be out of here by 12, so we don't want to hold you up on what you got to do. But let's get into it, folks. Let's rip off the Band-Aid, so to speak. During Microsoft's unrivaled E3 2021. Bethesda's Starfield was confirmed multiple times as an exclusive for Xbox and Windows PC. Now, this, in my opinion, was a gut check for many of the Bethesda fans who only game on PlayStation. Now, I know Zemi has a different opinion on exclusives, but Microsoft didn't spend nearly $8 billion to allow these very unique experiences on anywhere that's not an Xbox or a PC, or obviously has Game Pass. We've heard Phil Spencer himself say, you'll find the games wherever Game Pass is, and we know that Game Pass is not coming at any point to PlayStation or even Nintendo for that matter. That has been confirmed this year. I think they would be allowing Microsoft to eat some of their lunch if Game Pass did come onto those services. And so if you want to play these games, you either got to play them on your beefy PC or you got to play it on Xbox or anywhere where Game Pass is. That is your tablet, your phone, your refrigerator. Later on this year, it's going to be on your TVs with the app. But since that confirmation, Bethesda has openly discussed Starfield. They talked about it. God Howard has talked about it. They're very excited. It is his biggest project. It is his dream project. We do know about that. But the biggest behind the curtain look came last week with the Settled Systems short video where they talked about multiple factions within the game. And of course, during this conversation that was had during this very short video interlude, if you will, they talked about the two biggest factions in the Settled Systems being the United Colonies and the Free Star Collective. Now, though they had a big war, that war has gone on for what seemed like years, but they also talked about some of these subsection groups that you're going to run into in the game, in what you would expect a Bethesda game to hold. They talked about the Ecliptic Mercenaries, the Pirates of the Crimson Fleet, a bunch of there's a group out there called the Violent Spacers, and there's also a fanatical, not surprising for a Bethesda game, a fanatical religious group known as the House of Moreau. These are, again, it was a short video. It didn't show any gameplay, but what's interesting are a couple of tidbits here. Obviously, we don't know what 2022 is going to hold in regards to what has not been announced, right? We know that there's going to be Breath of the Wild 2, right? We know that there's going to be Horizon Forbidden West, right? We know that for an absolute fact. We also know that Bethesda is releasing the first new IP on a scale this big in probably a decade, right? This is going to be a big game for Microsoft. It is a monster exclusive. It is a game that's coming directly into Xbox Game Pass. In typical God Howard production values, I would imagine the game is going to be a looker. It received a 1-year delay, very similar to what happened with Halo Infinite, and we've seen what happens when a game is delayed. As long as Halo Infinite was delayed, and the final product is what we saw, and it's still being polished, I believe that same transition is going to happen for this game, for Starfield. I think when it finally releases holiday of next year, it is going to be one of those games that we're going to look back and just be in awe on how good it is. But the question of the day, Mr. Joanna Dark, is when you look at what Sony has done this year. Now, they've had some pretty incredible experiences, Ratchet and Clank being one of them. Obviously, depending on where you fall, Returnal for some people were great. For me, I probably wouldn't buy it for $20. It still has a saving problem, and I know there's some people that really enjoyed it. Not for Boom, so I could care less. Deathloop is a game that I did buy for the PlayStation 5, even though it's eventually coming to Xbox Game Pass next year. But I wanted to experience it. It is a phenomenal game. Again, it's that studio is known for these kind of experiences, and if you like them, you're going to probably love Deathloop. And there hasn't been much else, right? I might have missed an exclusive or something here or there, but there's not a lot to look forward to. For 2022, all we know is the new Gran Turismo, which, folks, it's going to be a good racing game, but I'm sorry to say it is not going to be able to hold a candle to Horizon or Motorsport, and that's just my opinion. You might disagree with me, but Polyphony is just not the same studio. They're just not that same studio that released these monster incredible titles back in the PlayStation 2 days. They're just not that. They're a studio known for delays, and their game was delayed into next year, so it's coming out next year. Horizon is going to be one of those games that's going to be potentially some people's game of the year, could even be my game of the year. I'm looking forward to Aloy's new story. I am in love with that franchise. Love it. It's one of my favorite new IPs. But when you look at what Microsoft has coming out, they could potentially dominate 2022 the same way I believe they're going to dominate 2021. At the end of the year, you obviously have the two big bombs in Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5. What a way to end the year. My question to you, Mr. Joanna Dark, and again, this is very, very opinion based. Everyone in the chat, take it easy if you get excited, because you could agree or you could disagree, but it's an opinion, so let's just take it with that. I think that Microsoft has already won 2022. I could be wrong. They have a new IP in Starfield. They have a new IP in Redfall. They have obviously Deathloop coming out, and Forza Motorsport, whatever they're going to call it, whether it's 8 or just Motorsport. Those are 4 monster games. They could release one every quarter. We don't know what's going to be coming out in between that hasn't been announced by Microsoft. I think they've already won the year just based on the exclusivity of Starfield. I'm not expecting anyone to agree with me. That's my opinion. What is yours? When you look at the intensity that this game is being looked upon as one of the biggest releases for Bethesda, for Todd Howard, and now Xbox because they're exclusive, where do you fall on, did they already win 2022?
I'm going to say, I think you made some great points, Mr. Boom. I'm going to say TBD.
Yeah, of course, obviously.
And the reason I'm going to say that is because there's so many amazing games coming out. It feels like 2017 all over again. And what I think is that, yes, there's going to be all these titles across multiple platforms coming out that are going to be amazing. We even forgot Dying Light that can be in the conversation, and Kill the Justice League.
Yeah.
What then if Starfield is supposed to be the game that unanimously wins the game of the year, here are the few things I want to see from Starfield as someone who's a fan of Bethesda games. I want to see, how does it evolve the sandbox kind of genre or a kind of formula and it's not just more than just more Skyrim and Fallout, which is not a bad thing, but I want to see how do you kind of reinvent that? How do you bring a nice tight story? One of the things that I liked about listening to that video was it feels like Mass Effect Andromeda in the sense of the way it's talking about these different factions, this war that happened 20 years prior to the game set in 2330 between the United Colonies and the Freestar Collective. And it sounds that the Constellation, which is the committee you're part of, they sound like the specters of that world that are out there going to discover and kind of police this amazing world. And I want to see how it blends this kind of grounded sci-fi with kind of this fantasy. They kind of said it's not going to be this crazy kind of like, I think what they were trying to say is, don't think much Mass Effect in the sense that, you have all these different things, but there are going to be, other alien life forms. And I just think that if it does some of these things, great storytelling, kind of gives you this kind of different evolution of the sandbox kind of open world formula, I think hands down it could run away with the overall game of the year. But it's right now it's too early and we don't know. We got to see what these games do. Is it more of the same? Do we get the same thing from Horizon? Is it just more Horizon? That's not a bad thing. That's just more of what we like, right?
Right.
God of War, same thing, more of what we like. But I do see that Microsoft, similar to that year that Sony had Persona 5, they had Final Fantasy, remake, all these games coming back to back, and it was just a month of just straight amazing games. I feel that Microsoft in 2022 is just a start of all these amazing games just trickling into the service and into the overall ecosystem. And they could have multiple games that might just, it may not be Starfield. They could probably be Redfall. So who knows? But it might be a Microsoft studio because of the fact that these big titles are coming to the platform.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're starting to see is, I believe it was VJ that said it earlier when we were talking about how Microsoft has set themselves up with this. Like that, we're starting to see the years of preparation come to fruition. It might have even been Zemi that said this. And now they seem to be, I mean, look, the reality is that Sony's big bangers, as the kids call them, they take 5 years to come out, 5-6 years. And with COVID still being a thing, a lot of their production schedules were kind of put on the backlog. I mean, a perfect example of God of War. Now that wasn't, I mean, I'm sure COVID played a huge part of it, but the actor that is mocapped for Kratos, he came out and apologized that God of War is delayed because he had multiple surgeries to repair his broken body, right? We talk about bad shoulders, bad knees, bad ankles, and I still don't think we get God of War in 22. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it comes out March of 23. I think because they're going to get a chance to, and he's got to do all the mocapping, and it's a lot of work. And again, there's still a lot of holdup in the industry. Games are being made, but they're games like God of War, Hellblade 2, where it's a lot of in-person stuff, where the mocap is the main aspect of the game. I think a lot of that is going to be held up. And I think God of War comes out in early 2023. That's, again, my opinion. But getting back to Starfield, I absolutely agree. I love the to be announced kind of a way of thinking, because it is, I mean, we're still in 2021, but I got to be honest. When you look at how big this game potentially could be, this is going to be, I'm not even suggesting it's going to run away with Game of the Year. I'm not even talking about that. We're too early for that. I just think that, honestly, for Microsoft as a corporation, for Xbox as a platform, when you have a bunch of new IPs that are potentially as massive as something like a Starfield and like a Redfall, and then you sprinkle in, obviously, a new, what they consider to be first party, because now Bethesda is first party, but you figure something like Turn 10's, new addition to the long running series. And then of course you get a few unannounced stuff, because there's some stuff that Microsoft isn't ready to talk about that we could get next year that could give us that, one every month or one every quarter, that they've talked about. I have a very, very suspicion that Microsoft is going to, we're seeing it this year. We're seeing at the end of the year. I think there's going to be a much different looked upon Microsoft moving forward.
Mr. Boom, one last thing I want to point out.
Yeah.
About, since we're talking about Game of the Year and Starfield, I want to know what Sony saw first and then what Microsoft, because again, Sony wanted to, rumored, this is not confirmed, they wanted to get Starfield similar to Deathloop. So what did they see? And then we see right now how Deathloop has turned out so far. Let's see Tokyo Ghostwire, which is another game. And I want to see what they saw, and then what Phil Spencer saw to say, hey, you know what? We need Bethesda. And same thing to the Psychonauts point and Double Fine. Let's see now that Bethesda doesn't have to make Youngblood or these games that kind of have some type of monetization in them. Let's see how they have when they finally have the resource and just could be creative overall.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fantastic point. Zemi, I want to bring you into the conversation because obviously, if you don't know, Zemi's a huge fan of Bethesda. I mean, he's beaten Skyrim 17,000 times already. And so obviously, you're a big fan of Todd Howard, right? We know
I
that.
love him. I love him.
Yeah, no
I'm not even going to say I'm a fan. I love Todd Howard. Yeah.
God Howard.
God Howard,
praise
as
be
he's
his
known.
name. Praise be his name. Of the church Bethesda. It's fantastic. You guys should join.
Look, as a fan of the brand, as a fan of the work that they do, of Todd Howard, and what he has delivered so far, expectations for Starfield are probably through the roof, not only for you but for many people. This new video gave us a glimpse, and I mean, honestly, the video's I don't know, it's about 1 minute and 43 seconds, something like that. It's not even that long, but it's enough that they're talking about Starfield 12 months before the game releases. That's something to be said. They're excited about it. We're excited about it. I think Microsoft could potentially dominate next year because of it. Where do you personally fall in the excitement for it and potentially answering the question, could this one game have already won 22 for Microsoft?
Well, I am extremely excited for Starfield. Absolutely. I mean, first off, I love RPGs. Second off, I'm probably Todd Howard's biggest fanboy. So I am very excited for Starfield. Watching that trailer, it had me all giddy. Just listening, to some information about the setting of the game. Where are we going to be? And then also giving us some backstory and some set pieces on like the different factions and kind of like the history, very basic history until now. I really, really, really like the direction that they're taking for this game. And for me personally, I don't really feel very Mass Effect-y whenever I see it. I kind of disagree with Joanna Dark a little bit in this. I actually see more of an Outer Worlds that's made by Bethesda and is a bigger project. The Outer Worlds was fantastic. One of my favorite games in 2019. I can't really remember, but when it released. But it was definitely a smaller game, right? The worlds weren't as big as what we've come to expect with a Bethesda title. At least it felt like, and even the number of side quests and so on and so forth. It was definitely a smaller title, like in scope. Than what we would see from a typical Bethesda game. But it was very reminiscent of that. And so I kind of expect that Starfield is going to be like the Outer Worlds, maybe a little bit more darker and grimier, just kind of the way that Bethesda does things. And of course, just a bigger experience. In my personal opinion, which I'm probably biased, as I'll get out with this, I think that Starfield is going to be a better, bigger version of the Outer Worlds, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So I'm super, super excited. As far as is it going to be the game of the year, or has Xbox already won 2022? I agree with Mr. JD over here. I don't think that we have enough information. I think, it is to be decided. There's, a lot of games that, could come out, could get delayed, so on and so forth. And a lot of those definitely impact, whether or not, Starfield is, a game of the year, but then also does Xbox win, that year. For instance, PlayStation, they have Horizon. Boom, you don't think that, God of War is going to come out, and it may not, it may get delayed, but, we don't really quite have that information right now. Right. And we do know that God of War is a super popular game over there on Sony's platform. But as far as the whole game of the year thing, I mean, there's going to be a lot of games that are going to be dropping out. And one RPG in particular that I'm very excited about and cannot wait for, that is also coming out in 2022, is Hogwarts Legacy.
Yes.
Which is a part of a very established IP, that being, Harry Potter. And it also, being of, we haven't gotten a good Harry Potter game in so many years. And this is looking to be a phenomenal RPG. So, that could definitely come in and possibly steal away a game of the year, victory from Starfield. So, there's still just a lot of games, like JD mentioned, that have, been unannounced, but also a lot of games that could be delayed and so on and so forth. So I don't think we have enough information to definitively say or even guesstimate if Starfield is going to win Game of the Year or not, or if Xbox is going to win 2022. I do think, just from looking at the playing field right now, from what we do know and what we're kind of somewhat expecting, there's definitely a very, very good possibility that Xbox could, in a lot of gamers' minds, maybe even the majority of gamers' minds, win 2022, just because they are just so packed with content right now. There's just so many studios underneath them, so many projects that we've already heard of, not to mention some of them that we quite possibly may have not even heard of yet. Xbox is in a very, very strong position going into this next year. I think in some ways definitely stronger than what PlayStation is currently sitting at, but there's still a lot of unknowns on the table.
Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. Real quick, before I bring VJ in on the conversation, I got to catch up with some of the super chats. First of all, Michelle Alexandria drops a very generous $5 super chat and says, "Buy the wife something nice." Thank you so much for that. I will certainly pay it forward with Mrs. Boom. Space Davikin drops an outstanding $5 super chat and says, "Boom, did you see that Call of Duty Vanguard game size? Apparently, Xbox and the PlayStation on the PC versions are now using sampler feedback streaming, and now it's smaller than the PS5 Kraken version." Yeah, I saw that they said it was going to be half the size. They didn't get into the specifics. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I could give a flying F. Call of Duty looks to be the worst of the bunch. This was another thrown together mess. It's gonna sell. People are gonna buy it. I'm not buying it. I'm not.
The campaign looks good.
Yeah, I mean, even the campaign.
That's the only redeeming factor I've found so far.
Maybe. Yeah, listen, I'm not giving Activision any of my money. I'm not giving my money to Blizzard. I stayed strong with that. As much as I want to enjoy the re-release of Diablo 2 with Mrs. Boom, I'm not doing it. I wouldn't even buy it used. I could care less. Bobby Kotick is I know there was a big story yesterday that he's taking less money until this thing is all. Listen, he made $137 million with bonuses and stock options last year. You think that if he took $1 this year, he'd be hurting? He'd have to go eat sandwiches off the corner? No, he's fine. He'll be okay. So yeah, until they work it out over there, I'm not supporting those companies at all. So I could honestly care less. But thank you for the super chat, brother. Thank you for the info. Definitely appreciate that. Gameonomics drops an additional 100 rubies, £5. Well, I would be $5 super chat. It says, "People here want a Switch, but don't buy it because Nintendo doesn't offer any kind of service in India, no online service or repair of any kind." That's awful. I'm actually very surprised. Nintendo's such a wide brand. The fact that they don't is a little disappointing. Drawn TJ, generous friend of the show, he drops a $5 super chat and says, "Great show, Boom and panel." Well, thanks, brother. Definitely appreciate that. Space Davikin drops an additional $5 super chat and says, "Xbox is on a really good position facing 2022. Starfield has the big opportunity to outshine other great games, new big IP, and fully next gen." Indeed, absolutely. Don't forget Peppa Pig, Game of the Year 2021. Don't forget about that. That's definitely going to win a lot of awards for sure. Thank you, Mr. Joanna Dark. But VJ, let's get your opinion on this, brother. Again, I mean, it would be foolhardy to put my flag in the sand here and says, "Yep, they won 2022." I'm simply just asking a question because Sony looks to be a little light coming in. Nintendo, we don't know. We know they're getting Breath of the Wild, so Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be one of those games that people are going to be talking about. It's going to win a lot of game awards. In fact, it's going to. I got news for you. It happened when it came out with Horizon Zero Dawn, and it could potentially happen again. That game itself could be hurt by Breath of the Wild 2, and we don't know. But again, this is a big IP. This is a new IP. It is Todd Howard's biggest project to date. It is the first new IP in a decade from that company. And it is an Xbox exclusive. I think that in itself really does set up Microsoft to potentially have a strong 2022. Where do you fall on this?
I think you touched on some really interesting points, and I think you're right. I mean, this is all going to be, supposition on my part, and very early in the morning, because I've just got so very little information or sort of facts to go on. I'm not really sure what determines that, Xbox sort of wins 2022. Especially sort of, in relation to Starfield. Is it in terms of subscriber numbers see an astronomical increase of 20 or 30% in lieu and post the title's launch, or is it most hardware units sold in a quarter than its closest rivals? I think it's at the end of next year, right? So I don't know what determines that. I think the fact that it's coming to Game Pass, and Lord knows what the budget for this game was, it must be quite astronomical. I don't see Starfield easily selling 20 or 30 million copies like previous Bethesda titles. Perhaps it will. I feel, like you said, Boom, when you go and buy a company and you make the title exclusive, it's inevitable. It's done now, so there's no point in moaning or complaining. You can have an opinion, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, and everyone should respect it. I feel that even Xbox, or the upper echelons at Xbox, Phil and his team would forgo unit sales if it makes far more commercial sense to sort of glean or garner a meaningful, I would actually say, sorry, not meaningful, I'd say a monumental increase in long-term subscribers for Game Pass on the back of Starfield. And I think that's part of their goal, right? I think everybody wants to see Bethesda return to form. With all due respect to, was it Deathloop and Tokyo Ghostwire? I know they're not out. I know Ghostwire's not out yet, and I haven't played Deathloop, so full disclosure there. They both pale. They're both pale in comparison, right? Not in terms of what they represent or their quality and everything. I'm sure they stand up, but in terms of the fantastical sort of hype, hope, belief, and promise and potential that Starfield represents, the game is still on the cusp of what being more than a year away from release, and logically thinking, given what's gone on in the last couple of years, pretty much anything can happen between now and then the release of Bethesda's, and now I should say Xbox's big hope. If the game's sort of received well and delivers on its premise and promise, you would have to say 2023 is far more of an interesting barometer, or early 2023, in terms of how Starfield benefited or changed the fortunes of Xbox. And I'm sure that's going to be a podcast of yours, Boom, and in about 18 months' time or whatever. But but how it changed the fortunes of Xbox as a business division, and how far it goes or went, in facilitating and establishing Xbox's position as a gaming utopia, which is further, sort of intertwined at the highest echelons of gaming pop culture in a more meaningful and fond remembrance and ever-present way, rather than sort of flirting with true greatness on occasion, throughout its iterations of Xbox hardware, right? And I don't know much about Nintendo's 2022 roadmap. Yes, I'm a huge Breath of the Wild fan, but in terms of Sony, I've got some inkling, right, that they have some incredible games next year that shouldn't be sniffed at. And we already know about Horizon Zero Dawn, Gran Turismo 7. I find Horizon Zero Dawn such a mouthful. Sorry. And then you've obviously got God of War, which, some say summer, some say fourth quarter, and some say 2023, right? Who knows? But I think Sony will strategically release that, and possibly, given the hardware shortages, given that it's a system seller for them, potentially it will also be based on hardware supply chain schedules, which, let's be honest, are still very difficult to get a next-gen machine. And look, I personally, when you look at Starfield, and we've talked about this, Boom, and I'm really, really looking forward to it, I wouldn't blame or discount Sony, Nintendo, and all the major publishers keeping an eye or even keeping a distance from Starfield's launch, right? Giving it a wide berth. Starfield may be the game Xbox and sort of PC gamers mainly want to play, but everyone outside of the ecosystem that is a gamer is going to have a very keen eye on proceedings, right? In terms of, look, do I need to get Game Pass or do I need to go and get a Series X? And I hope Microsoft have plenty of hardware to go around. It can't be, I mean, it's not their fault, but I just hope that the situation is somewhat remedied in terms of if you see a game, you see the hardware, you want to be able to pick it up and enjoy it, right? Not just watch it on YouTube. But I think that you simply, come the end of next year, if the game hits its release timing, you simply, well, I think we all know this, we simply aren't going to be able to feign ignorance or unawareness of Starfield, whether you're in gaming or not, especially when, if you look at Bethesda and how they go about their business, and specifically Pete Hines, right, goes about marketing Bethesda games, and he's been there a very long time. And as long as I want to say this because I think it's important, as long as the Xbox marketing team assists and aids Peter Hine, right, and
Yes.
he's the one that's leading, I think that's critical, because I've said it quite openly that if you look at the Xbox management team and you look at the Bethesda marketing team, not the team, just the whole teams in general, right? Everything that the management teams encapsulate. I think Bethesda is far more well-rounded and far more street savvy, and they have to be, right? They had their shareholders, investors, and breathing down their necks consistently, right? Making sure that they remain consistently sharp. And if you're not sharp, you don't continue to work at Bethesda. I've had people, friends and colleagues, work there before, and some that still do. And with Sony, on the other hand, one thing you can say about them that they're very conscious, they're very consistent, they're very deliberately organized, and they offer a diverse schedule of releases. And that is something that you can say about Xbox now, right? As we've talked about earlier, right? Since 2018, or perhaps even before then, because the announcements were in 2018. So you'd have to say since 2017, at least, for the last four and a half years, right? Microsoft have been building this infrastructure leading up to this fourth quarter of releases and beyond, right? And whilst all Sony's games are sequels, it still leads me to believe that Sony's 2022, my goodness, I'm even losing track of time now, such a great show. Sony's calendar schedule is greater than the sum of its parts or its rivals, based on what little we know today, as per Zemi's comment, right? And I say this because, or why else do we as Xbox gamers, right, sort of remain steadfast proponents in our love and support for Game Pass, right? Because of diversity and because of options.
Yep.
Especially given what's on offer in terms of options and diversity this November and December alone from Xbox first party. It's certainly not, waiting for a one-off calendar release, right, to change its fortunes, right? It's Xbox and Game Pass especially, and I've said this before, are greater than the sum of its parts, even though some people want to ridicule the titles that are in there. I never find myself short of playing something. And again, as both panel members have said, but my both esteemed panel members, colleagues have said that, we haven't seen the gamers yet, but over and above Starfield, Sony's roster looks formidable. They know how to steer their ship, and even compared to sort of, or going up against Starfield, which I as I've said, I expect them to give it a very wide berth, because it's touted, broadcasted, and trumpeted, and given the $7.5 billion spent, it's a major title for Xbox at the end of 2022, and I'm going to be, I won't be surprised if the marketing budget's as big as the development budget. And the reason why I say that, Boom, it's not just a game that's coming out at the end of next year. It's got to be, open the show with talks of accolades and awards ceremonies and so on and so forth. If this game is a contender, it's got to be a game of the generation contender, right? And I say that because it has to be. Anything short of special will lead consumer minds feeling disenchanted, and Xbox frustrated. Starfield, in many minds, given the $7.5 billion plus fee, and because people don't often build in, all the legal fees, and that's probably got to be quite significant.
Yeah, it was closer to 8 billion.
Yeah,
a lot
exactly.
of people don't know that.
Yeah, exactly. So I just wanted to sort of, if people were questioning why you said 8 billion, there's a reason for why you said it. And obviously Todd's credentials and being hands-on behind the project, you can see the way he fondly speaks of the efforts of several years behind this game. And it's interesting, right? If you look at people's mindsets, right, this game already kind of defies and challenges, words, right, to measure the immeasurable, right? So I hope you're with me. with me there.
We with you, brother.
Yeah, and this is all. Sometimes I go off on one, and even my wife ignores me. Anyway, that's a separate subject, or a different topic, perhaps. This is all, supposition on my part, and it's 7 a.m. in the morning, and that sort of before any sort of strange listeners start hammering their keyboards or touch screens with fists of fury, it is early for me, and I may not have got everything correct, right?
But no, you did. You did good as always, and expected.
Yeah, but all in all, I would say what I've said is a fair one, right? I would say, right, given on how little we've seen, but the expectation is there, especially with the pedigree of the team behind the game, and based on what I know, and given that, as I said before, none of us have seen Starfield yet, so hopefully, I think it was Zemi, might have been JD that said, the award ceremony shows a lot of good stuff off, other than everybody wants to see what the new premieres are. But hopefully the Game Awards will see this little issue and mystery remedied. I hope so, Boom. And I'm really looking forward to the game.
Yeah, me too. Listen, folks, it's been a great 2 hours. Hopefully you are someone that enjoyed yourself here today. If you, of course, had a chance to find the channel for the first time, like several people have, consider subscribing. We are on the march to 10K, and we're closing in. I don't think we're going to hit it this year. We're still a little light. We're closing in on 9,100 subs, which is fantastic. Probably early next year. I'm thinking first quarter, for to be fair. But listen, if you already subscribed and you enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like button. Obviously, I want to see everyone turn out for a lot of reasons on Monday's Primetime Gaming. Besides the two guests, we're celebrating Mrs. Boom's birthday publicly. And thanks to her, we are giving away $300 worth of gift cards, which is awesome. That's coming out of her pocket. She wanted to give back to the community that has given us so much. And all you got to do is be in the chat, and you have a shot to win. But, of course, if you drop a super chat or you are a channel member, you do get additional entries, and that gives you a better shot on winning. So big thank you to everyone that tuned in for today. Of course, I want to thank my guests. Obviously, we had a lot of the panel members not make it today. In fact, the entire panel, obviously outside of VJ, Dreadpool still dealing with some family stuff. And obviously, Crispy Bomb got called into work. Big Cloud got hung up with something. And we should have everyone back next week. But let's get to the outro. Start first with Zemi. Actually, let me start with Mr. Joanna Dark. We got to get him out of here. Mr. Joanna Dark, thank you so much for your insight, for being here 2+ hours of your day. Hopefully you had as much fun as you did the last time. Tell everyone. They can reach out to you on social media. But what else you got going on?
Yeah, thank you again. I had a great time. It was great to meet Zemi Games. And again, VJ, a pleasure. People can find me on Twitter at big_N_boss, and it'll be under Mr. Joanna Dark. And I also am part of the Nickel Gaming Show, which we moved to a new time now to make sure we don't miss the news of the week. So now we're on Friday evenings at 6:30. That's the Nickel Gaming Show on YouTube. And besides that, just completing some games. I'm on Guardians and I'm playing Echo Generations. I completed House of Ashes if you want a good horror game. And I also completed Deathloop.
Nice, great, fantastic, all fantastic games. We would love to. We'd love to. If you want to reach out to him, strike up a potential conversation. He's, like I said, he's been very good with interacting with the community, and I think that is super important. Listen, dude, it was great to have you here. We definitely got to get you back. Again, check out the podcast that he's doing weekly. I think it's well done. It's got to get some more views, get some more subs. Check him out. His link will be available in the show notes once this uploads. Mr. Zemi Games. Thank you so much for being here. Happy Halloween, but no scary stuff for you today other than the PlayStation State of Nay. Listen, tell everyone about your channel. Tell everyone about what you got going on with ConstantGamer.com, and where can people strike up a conversation on social media?
Well, let me tell you, I'm going to get some booze for saying this, but Halloween, worst holiday ever. Ever.
How dare you? How dare you?
And I say that being the true coward that I am, and I will always be. No, if you guys want to, you can check out my YouTube channel. It's called Constant Gamer. I post gaming related content on there, such as gaming news, reviews, let's plays, some theory videos, all sorts of gaming content. So if that's your type of thing, definitely hop over, check out the channel, watch some videos. If you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. Once again, that channel is called Constant Gamer. You guys can also follow me on Twitter at Zimmy Games. I pretty much, post, gaming news on there, reply to different people's posts, all the typical things that you would expect a content creator to do on Twitter. So if you'd like, definitely give me a follow on there. Once again, that is at Zimmy Games. Boom. It's been great to make my great return to Breakfast with Boom. And I look forward to, hopefully I come back to the show. Hopefully it doesn't take me as long as it did this last time. But I do look forward to next Tuesday hopping back onto the Xbox Factor with you guys and hopefully talk about does Xbox need a kart racer?
Oh, no, I literally wrote it already. Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to that topic. For sure.
Yeah, I did my imagination. Again, I'm not going to get hired by Microsoft because I'm the old tire, so they're not hiring me. But man, if anybody from Playground Games or Turn 10 wants to, potentially strike up a conversation, I have such incredible ideas, and it wouldn't be a samey racer. I have so many great ideas. I almost think that it's with the long history that Xbox has. Now celebrating this November 15th is 20 years. Their character roster is glorious, and it could easily fill 15, 20 racers, and the courses that could come across. We're going to talk about this in more depth on Tuesday, why I think it's again, you don't have to copy Nintendo. You can do your own thing, and I really wish they would be simply because I've talked about this before. That family-friendly game that everyone's looking for, and a platformer that you can play with your kids. It's not Psychonauts 2. That has a lot of adult themes, told in a classy way, but not for kids. I'm sorry, it's just not. Gambling, drug addiction, things of that nature. It's just not what you. I mean, could you play with your kids? Sure. Would they understand it? Probably not. And you can get away with it. But I'm talking about the Banjo-Kazooies of the world, the Mario Karts of the world. Microsoft still needs those. They do. They absolutely do. And we're going to get into that on Tuesday. But VJ, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for breaking down the subjects normally, the way that you normally do. Tell everyone where they can reach out to you on social media. But what else you got going on?
I think all the regular panel members, Boom, have had enough of me. They're probably all on strike. So thanks to JD and Zemi for stepping in and putting up with me. You can find me on Stubbs midweek gaming on Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I just want to say thanks to everyone in the chat. Very cool to interact with you, and I'm already looking forward to next week. Thanks very much, Boom.
Thank you so much. And of course, I want to thank everybody that dropped the super chat in. Again, the super chats allow for us to do these giveaways. They allow for us to keep up to date with the equipment. Again, we do this for fun, but the super chats do, in fact, help. The channel memberships do, in fact, help. And of course, we have a couple of big giveaways outside of the one this Monday with celebrating Mrs. Boomstick's birthday, which is November 1st, All Saints Day, if you are here in the U.S. We have the big Christmas with Mr. and Mrs. Boomstick. We have on tap $500 already of prizes, and it could be potentially more. One of which is going to be one of the 20th anniversary controllers that Microsoft put out. I'm going to see if I can get myself a second Elite controller, the Halo Elite, to give away. If I can get one, I will be giving one of those away as well. And it's just, again, our way of just saying thank you for everyone that does what they do. But anyway, listen, folks, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your holiday weekend in Halloween. Be safe. Be smart, and obviously, again, just be safe, because it is treacherous out on those streets. And of course, I'll close out the show with something that is important to me. Hopefully, one day will be important to you. That's something that my dad taught us when we were kids. It stayed with me my entire career as a police officer, but more importantly, as a human being. Treat others how you want to be treated. Also, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. So take care, everyone. We'll see you next week on the newest episode of Breakfast with Boom.